Now, Hurricane Dorian has crashed into the shore into the Bahamas and has tied as the most powerful storm to hit land anywhere in the Atlantic. Now, the hurricane brought 180-mile-per-hour winds. While the devastation mounts in the Bahamas, the threat to Florida and the U.S. East Coast remains uncertain. Well, we're now joined by Stuart Wallace. He's our Bloomberg executive editor for commodities. Stuart, thank you so much for joining us. When do we know how much of an impact this has on Florida and the East Coast?
I mean, in the next 48 hours is the most sensible answer I can give you. At the moment, it's either going to hit Florida, go just past that East Coast, or go a little bit further out. And we're really at that stage in terms of the storm development where it's changing the eye wall of the storm. It means it gets bigger, it gets slower, but there's also a great deal of uncertainty about where exactly it's going to go. So the middle point of this cone of uncertainty takes us up to the right-hand side of the East Coast. That will still be pretty damaging. Remember, you've got storm swells, you've got winds. None of that is good for anything in Florida, but obviously it's a much better scenario than if it hits the state directly.
Stuart, give me a sense of exactly, how fast we can assess the damage to the Bahamas, right? So we understand it's damaged property infrastructure amongst the chain of islands, but is it more than a week after you really understand how hard they've been hit?
Really hard to tell. I mean, at the moment we're piecing together things from local media, from Twitter, and now some of that is obviously unreliable, so we're being very cautious, but certainly the images we're seeing coming out of the Bahamas, those that are emerging, look pretty devastating. Incredibly high floodwaters and just about everything damaged. Now, obviously, we're going to be super cautious here because the storm is still sitting over the Bahamas, and it's probably going to be another day or two before it moves away and we get some better sense of just how much damage has been done. Again, it's still happening right now.
Stuart, what are we worried about this hurricane actually hitting? I was reading there's like a nuclear power station. Is that the thing that we should worry about the most?
No, I mean, by and large, those sorts of facilities should have contingency plans in place. Now, of course, that doesn't always guarantee it, but by and large, if you build anything in Florida, you've got to have hurricanes in mind. It happens semi-regularly, should we say. So in terms of what we're worried about most, clearly it's loss of life is obviously always number one. But then in terms of the commodity side of things, you've got the orange crop coming up in October. You've got lots of other citrus that's coming up for about then. And then obviously it's the power networks, to what extent can they survive? And some really, really pricey real estate along that East Coast.